Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm Snow, and today we're going to continue my build video series with Layla. She's a very interesting character, with a good combo of both offensive and defensive capabilities. So in this video, I'll be going over her skill build as well as her potential skill and equipment setups. Let's start with her trait skill. It's called Iris Vanguard. With this skill, she gains Block, which is a buff that gives a 50% chance to face the enemy when taking physical damage from the front or side, decreasing damage taken by 20%. In Layla's case, she's also able to block magical attacks. Additionally, before an enemy actively attacks Layla, she'll perform a preemptive strike on enemies in the front or side within 2 tiles of her. Preempt is a special ability that triggers certain effects or attacks before being actively attacked by enemies. In Layla's case, she performs an attack, so she'll be able to do a lot of passive damage with these preemptive strikes. And because it's a preemptive strike, enemies can be taken out before they even hit her. She also has a skill that we'll discuss later that increases the effect range of these preemptive strikes. Her trait skill also allows her to gain a special effect called Iris Vanguard. So at the end of the turn, if Layla is within the enemy's threat range, she'll gain Iris Vanguard, which is a buff that increases damage dealt by 40%, and when attacking, she'll ignore 20% of the target's defense. And this buff will last until the start of the next turn. So Layla has a lot of abilities in this first part of her trait skill that set the tone for the rest of her skill kit, which we'll get into in a bit. So with the second part of her trait skill, she gets some stat increases, so her magic defense is increased by 25%. At base star level, her magic defense increases only 15%, and that increases to 25% at 4 stars. For the next part of her trait skill, her preemptive strikes can deal 60% physical damage, but that's at 4 stars. At base star level, the damage dealt is 40%. So Preempt will deal most of the damage at base star level, and you'll just get a 20% increase at 4 stars. The next part of her trait skill gets added at 3 stars. So the trigger range for Preempt will change to be within 3 tiles of the character. The number of times Preempt can trigger changes depending on her star level. So at base star level, she can only trigger Preempt 2 times per round. At 2 stars, it increases to 4 times per round, and at 4 stars, it increases to the maximum of 6 times per round. So the higher her star level, the more damage she'll be able to contribute outside of her turn with her preemptive strikes. And as for the last part of her trait skill, she'll get this at 5 stars, and this allows her to get 1 energy at the start of the turn. So her trait skill really revolves around this preemptive technique. And her skill kit's not any different. Her skill kit synergizes really well with this trait skill, and you'll see that in a moment. She also starts with a skill called Brutal Blow. This is a single target physical attack that deals 130% damage. And before attacking, she'll gain Physical Defense 2, which increases her physical defense by 40%, and Magic Defense 2, which increases her magic defense by 40%. And these buffs last for 2 turns. This is a really nice skill to start off with. It gives a really nice boost to her tankiness, since it's giving a significant increase to both physical and magic defense, and you're dealing damage as well. But she does have a lot of great skills in her skill tree. At rank 1, we have a passive and a support skill. First we have Co-Defense. This is a passive skill, where for each ally within 2 tiles of Layla, defense increases by 10%. And this can go up to 40%. This is a good skill in terms of increasing her tankiness, but she has other passives and skills that you'd probably use over this. Her other option at rank 1 is called Police Lasso. This is a support skill that's also an instant skill. With this skill, after attacking, she inflicts Restraint, which is a control debuff that reduces speed by 100 points. And makes them unable to move. She'll also inflict Attack Down 2, which decreases magic and physical attack by 20%. And she'll also inflict Assist Block, which makes the enemy unable to perform any type of assist attack. so assisting cover, assisting attack, assisting healing, and revenge. And all of those debuffs will last for 2 turns. If the enemy is already inflicted with restraint, she'll inflict stun, and that will last for 2 turns. Police Lasso is a really nice control skill, and it can be good to use in certain situations. It is limited to only 3 uses, so you can't use this continuously, but it is a valuable skill to use in certain situations, so it is recommended to pick this up at rank 1. At rank 3, we have 2 important skills, especially if you want to use Layla in a supportive role. First, we have Shelter from the Storm, also called Sheltered Bay. This is a support skill that grants Layla damage reduction 4, which decreases damage taken by 40%. But she'll also provide her allies with a number of buffs. Her allies will get physical defense 2 and magic defense 2, which increases physical and magic defense by 40%, as well as piercing damage reduction 3, which is a buff that reduces piercing damage taken by 30%. And these buffs will be applied to all allies within 3 tiles of Layla, and the buffs will last for 2 turns. So this skill is great because it provides team-wide damage mitigation. Her other option at rank 3 is called Shared Tribulation, also called We Are Together. This is also a support skill, but it's an instant skill. And with this skill, Layla teleports other allies within 4 tiles of her to the tiles next to her. Additionally, Layla gains a number of buffs. She'll gain Assisting Cover, which is a buff where she'll guard allies within the action range by swapping positions and taking damage from single target attacks. She also gains Block Enhancement 2, which is a buff that when being attacked by ranged attacks from the front or side, there is a 100% chance to block. This will also decrease damage taken by 25% when a block is triggered. She'll also get a special buff called Comrades, and this allows Layla to inflict passive skill block and decrease attack 2 on an enemy for 1 turn. These debuffs are applied after she performs a strike back, alert, or preemptive strike, and the buffs for assisting cover, block enhancement, and comrades will last for 2 turns. This Shared Tribulation skill is considered to be one of her signature skills. So if you're short on Castalias, you really want to pick up this particular skill over the other skill. However, both skills at rank 3 are necessary if you want to play Layla as a supportive character. At rank 5 are the reaction skills. First we have Front Defense. With this skill, when hit by an active attack from the front, the damage taken is decreased by 30%. So this is a very straightforward skill. It provides Layla with some damage reduction. Her other reaction skill is called Use Waves, also called Quell the Tides. With this reaction skill, when Layla's attacked by a ranged attack from the front or side, if the enemy's speed is lower than Layla's, she'll dodge all of their attacks. This can be triggered up to 1 time per round, and when dodging, she'll deal 60% physical damage to 1 random target within a 3x4 area in the attacker's direction. This is a really great reaction skill. She's getting the dodge, which completely negates damage, and she's also dealing damage, so this gives her another opportunity to deal damage in addition to her preemptive strikes. So at rank 5, you really want to pick up this skill. Rank 7 is another one that has 2 really important skills. First we have Night Crimson. It's also referred to as Scarlet Knight, and this is a leader aura skill. So for all Night Crimson allies in battle, they'll get an increase to attack by 10%, an increase to defense by 20%, and an increase in damage by 12%. So this is a really nice skill, especially if you're using a lot of Night Crimson characters on your team, because they'll get a nice boost to both their offensive and defensive capabilities. Her other skill at rank 7 is her ultimate skill. It's called Cloud Slash, and this is a damage skill that deals 3 hits of 25% physical damage to all enemies within a 2-tile radius of Layla. It also inflicts Vulnerable 2 on the enemies, which is a debuff that increases damage taken by 20%, but it's applied after she deals damage, and that debuff will last for 2 turns. After attacking, she'll also gain Iris Vanguard, which is a buff that increases damage dealt by 40%, and when attacking, she'll ignore 20% of the target's defense. She also gains another buff called Slashed Clean, and this is a special buff where the attack method of her trait skill changes to Forced Alert Triggers. So this increases the alert range by 1 tile. It also increases the number of alert triggers by 1, and the alert cannot be interrupted. If the number of triggers is used up, it will revert back to the original trait attack method, and this effect can't be dispelled or immunized. The Iris Vanguard buff and the Slash Clean buff will last for 1 turn. The great part about this skill is it sets an alert range, which is a pretty wide range. And the moment an enemy walks into that range, Layla will attack, but she's also getting the damage boost from Iris Vanguard. This skill is one of her most important damage dealing skills outside of her preemptive attacks, which is not surprising. It is her ultimate skill. It's recommended to pick up both skills at rank 7, but if you're short on Castalias, if you want to use Layla offensively, take Cloud Slash, but if you plan on using her in more of a supportive role, then pick up the leader's aura skill. At rank 9, we have the basic attacks. The first option is Dispelling Strike. This deals 100% physical damage and dispels 2 buffs on the target. The second option is called Sword in the Staff. This is a single target attack that deals 75% physical damage. And before she attacks, if the target has 3 or more debuffs, she pursues after the attack, dealing an additional 35% physical damage 2 times. This is a great skill because Layla has debuffs in her kit, and any debuffs applied by her teammates would also count as well, so it's not difficult to meet the criteria to get the extra damage. Sword in the Staff is just overall a better skill, so it's recommended to pick up this skill at rank 9. At rank 11, we have 2 passives. The first skill is called Battlefield Walk. This is a passive that reduces damage taken by 15% and makes her immune to Scorch, which is a debuff where the character loses 10% of HP after each turn. She'll also be immune to skill interruption effects. Additionally, at the end of the turn, she'll clear enemy traps and special tile effects within 2 tiles around her. This is a nice defensive passive that provides her with a lot of benefits and immunities. The other option at rank 11 is another passive called Encounter Stance, also called Fighting Stance. With this passive, 40% of her magic defense is added to her physical attack, and her HP is increased by 10% at the start of battle. This passive is good if you want to use Layla offensively because of the increased attack that she's going to get, and it increases her tankiness by increasing her HP. So it is recommended to take Encounter Stance at rank 11, especially if you want to enhance her damage output, but you can technically pick either of these skills. In terms of her skill setup, for her basic attack, you're going to have Sword in the Staff. For her reaction skill, you're going to have Quell the Tides. And as for her skill slots, there's a couple of different options. So the first setup is mainly for support. These 3 skills are going to provide the defensive buffs. You'll also get attack buffs from the aura skill, and you'll also have the skill that allows you to teleport your allies to you so that you can assist cover them. These 3 skills together will allow her to function as a really good support unit for your team, and you'll still get passive damage from her Preemptive Strikes, which is built into her trait skill. If you want to get a little more damage out of her, and you're not using a lot of Night Crimson units, you could swap the aura skill for her ultimate skill. This will still give you access to those really good support skills, but you'll also be able to contribute more damage by having access to Cloud Slash. You can also just go the full damage route and take out the support skills. So for this setup, you'll have her aura skill, her ultimate skill, and then the passive that increases her damage output. This setup will help you maximize her overall damage between her ultimate skill and her preemptive strikes. And as for her equipment setup, for her weapon, Newborn Blade is your best option. This is going to give her an HP increase, and it's also going to increase her damage output as well. Cornucopia Dagger is not a bad option either, because it has energy regeneration and HP recovery, but Newborn Blade is just a better choice for her. For her trinket, she has a few options. Her special equipment, Shield of Justice, is obviously a great option for her. This is going to increase your attack and defense when you have a physical shield, which is not a problem because this trinket gives you a physical shield at the start of the turn, but that ability does have a cooldown. Honestly, the most accessible option, and it's a really great option for her, is the Hunter's Intuition Trinket. This increases damage when alert is triggered, which Layla does have alert skills, and her ultimate skill is an alert skill. So this is a really great option for Layla, and it helps with increasing her damage output. If you want to go a more defensive route, you can use something like Mystery Guardian. This would give her a bonus to her defense, and give her immunity to defense attribute debuffs. If you want to go a more supportive route with her, you can use something like Old Scrolls. This would allow her to give her allies a random level 2 buff, and an increased speed buff. And as for her Terror Whisper, there are a few options with this as well. If you want to increase her damage output, you can use something like Devil. You can also use Destruction of the Tower. This will allow her to increase her damage when it's not her turn, so her preemptive strikes are going to be increased. The alert attacks from her ultimate skill would also be increased. So Tower is an amazing choice, especially if you want to increase her damage output. You can also go a defensive route and use something like Silence of the Hermit. This would decrease her damage taken. So Layla does have a couple of different options, especially for the Terror Whisper and the Trinket. What you use is going to come down to how you plan on playing her, and what skill set you select to use. Layla is a strong tank DPS style character, with a lot of variability in how you can build her. Layla has the special ability to block both physical and magic attacks. She excels at dealing damage outside of her turn, with her special ability to perform preemptive strikes, which allows her to use her turn to support her allies. Layla has many supportive skills for enhancing team-wide damage mitigation, including a skill that provides piercing damage reduction. She's also able to provide covering assist, and the ability to pull back her allies and regroup by teleporting them next to her. She also has many self-buffs, like for instance, her special buff Iris Vanguard, that significantly increase her damage output. I want to note that just like every other character, some of her power is locked behind star level. You'll start seeing her full potential at 3 stars, which increases her preemptive attack trigger range, or at 4 stars for her max damage potential. However, Layla is a fantastic tank DPS character that has a great balance of both offensive and defensive capabilities. So you should definitely consider building her if you get her. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.